Hey InternMakers, this is Abhishek Aryaman. I'm a junior at Penn State. I'm majoring in data science and economics. I'm a student entrepreneur and also an international student. And today I'm here to talk to you about my journey with consulting internships and how to get a consulting internship. So we're going to talk about how I got to intern with KPMG and EY for my freshman and sophomore year. It's been so long when I think about it. Or when I was a freshman, I was seriously naive, so I didn't have any clue about what I wanted to do. But I think I followed a framework that I'm going to share with you that has gotten me these internships. So when you're thinking about internships, let's break it down into two parts. First is the things you can do before you apply and the things that you do after you apply. So when you're sort of in the process, you're interviewing and different kind of stuff that happens once you've applied. So before anything even starts and you're just thinking in your head, these are the companies I want to apply for, the first thing I want you to start doing is networking. Reach out to the people who you literally want to be like, who you want to work in the positions that they're working for, and talk to them. Set up informational interviews, talk to them, ask them about their job, what's their day-to-day like, what's different things they're doing, and also try to establish a relationship with them rather than keeping it transactional. At this point, you're not looking for referrals. You're just trying to understand them and the sort of work they do and sort of form like an internal landscape of the company itself by talking to a lot of its employees. So networking, try to reach out, and this is going to keep going until you get the job. So network every day. Second, there are going to be some defining factors which are going to make sure whether you get the interview or not. And those are going to be three things. A referral, a cover letter, a resume, actually four things, and a LinkedIn. So networking we spoke about. Hopefully you manage to secure good relationships with people and they have no problems giving you a referral. Again, what I've found that works out for people the best is not to keep it transactional. It's sort of ironical how you don't try to keep it transactional, but you sort of get a referral. But when you do try to keep it transactional, you don't get a referral. Second, so your cover letter. So cover letters are, some people say they don't have any value, but as I've spoken to some recruiters, they have always advised me to have one ready, because in case it's a tiebreaker and it's a competition between me and some other candidate, the cover letter is going to be the tiebreaker and they're going to see who has the better cover letter, or if one of us has one at all. The third thing is resume. So, and I don't mean just having a one resume that you use for all your profiles. That doesn't work, and that was me freshman year, sophomore year, and you don't want to do that. You want to keep changing these resumes every time you're applying for a new job and making sure that everything that the job asks for its candidates, you have that somehow in your resume for all of the points that you mentioned, so that employers can just match up these points and see that you're the perfect fit for the role that you're applying for. And another thing is LinkedIn, and it's become so relevant in the times that we're applying today because a lot of recruiters will just go and check out your LinkedIn first before they do anything. So having a LinkedIn is super important, and just having a sort of personal brand around it where you're able to showcase all your work is super important as well. Now, let's say you have a good cover letter, you network really well, you have a good resume, and you have a good LinkedIn. You applied, you got through, you have the interview now. Now what? So consulting interviews are divided into two things, right? The first one is called the behavioral interview, which is more like talking about yourself, seeing if you're a good cultural fit for the company, if you sort of would work well with the team, and sort of if you know why you want the job. And the second part is case interview. Now they want to see, do you have what it takes to be a consultant? And when I mean what it takes, it basically means that you're able to think logically, you're able to convey your thoughts logically, you're client oriented. I'm going to get into these things further, but they just want to get a sense, can you do the job well, right? So what you can do is make sure you have a good cover letter, good resume, good LinkedIn profile, you're networking a lot, and you're practicing a lot of cases, and also you are practicing the STAR method, which is super important when you're doing behavioral interviews. So I'm not going to get too deep into the STAR method because there are so many resources online that do a tremendous job of explaining it, and it's best to like sort of understand the STAR method when you're going through these behavioral interviews. So that was the sort of gist of what I did that sort of helped me get the job at KPMG and EY. Now I sort of want to get into what you should be doing if you want to get a job in consulting. And after speaking to like different professionals, I've seen that there are basically 5 things, right? So we're going to talk about the first one. The first one is having a really logical framework of how you sort of deal with the problems that you come across. And this can be sort of broken down into 2 more branches. So having a logical understanding is the prerequisite, and being able to apply that logical understanding to business problems and sort of your niche related problems is the second step. So when I say niche related problems, it means if you're a technology consultant, you're able to apply your logical thinking to tech problems. If you're a supply chain consultant, you're able to apply your logical frameworks to all these supply chain problems. So that's the first thing that you must have, a logical framework. And how do you develop that? It comes from getting more into consulting. And I know it sounds vague, but if I were to go into the specifics, what I did was I joined more consulting clubs. So I had people who were constantly working on cases, and we would sort of work together and challenge each other. The second thing that you can do is practice more cases. And this is super important, because the more cases you practice, the sort of better you get at doing them. And also you sort of like brush up that logical muscle in your mind. The third thing is making sure that you're doing case competitions. This is super important and it just helps a lot. So we're done with the first one, which is logical thinking. Second is having client-oriented skills. Now, consulting is a client-oriented business. You need to know how to deal with clients. Otherwise, you're not going to be a good fit for the job. So how do you get these client-oriented skills? And it sort of goes back to sort of being more involved in consulting. So being a part of good consulting clubs on campus, doing case competitions. And also the third thing, reading books on consulting is a super important thing that you can do. Because when I say being client-oriented, there's so many things that should be listed, but it sort of becomes intuitive for the people who are client-oriented. So for example, I was given these examples when I asked someone, what does it even mean to be client-oriented? And they told me like little non-verbals that sort of make the client feel really comfortable with you. So it's just these little things that you can do to sort of make the client really comfortable. For example, when a police officer interrogates someone, they're sitting across from each other, right? But it's a subtle thing that you can do when you're sitting with client that makes you come across as less interrogative and more collaborative. So just like sort of coming to their side and not facing them. That's one thing. The second thing is whenever you're sort of like showing a paper to your client, turning the paper 360 so that it faces them and not you is another. There are a bunch of different things, and I wish I could list them, but it's just sort of intuitive things that you're supposed to do that make you client oriented. Now the third thing that I want to get into is leadership skills. And leadership skills, I think in the times that we're applying for, is like a prerequisite for getting any good job. And consulting is no different. So I don't want to get too deep into it, but join different clubs, get into leadership positions, and start a company, a club, or an initiative on campus. These things show great leadership in initiative. And then I think another bonus point here is if you can show that you have leadership experience dealing with cross-functional teams. And when I say cross-functional, I mean teams with different disciplines, so like technology and business. This shows that you have the capacity to work cross-functionally, which is super important being a consultant because you're working with different clients in different industries. So that's a big yes. The fourth point is global exposure. Consultants are basically like business nomads, as I like to think of them. They're constantly traveling, working on different clients in different countries. So you want to be flexible in your thought culture and just being extremely global. You don't feel culturally shocked every time you go to a new place. So I think this actually works really well for international clients for a change, because when you're international, you have been taken from one country and sort of like brought into this other country. Not bought, I mean, we came because of our will, and you're here, and now you have these international experiences. So this works really well for international kids, and if you're not international, do a study abroad. So global experience can be super helpful when you're going into consulting, because I've had a lot of employers tell me that they want people who have that global experience and they prefer it. And I think the final point is going to be that you can show that you're extremely innovative. And when I say innovative, you can show that by a bunch of different things, by coming up with new products, projects which solve problems, right? So, and doing it in a way which is sort of non-traditional, out of the box, innovative, just so that you can make sure that these employees know that you can sort of creatively solve problems and match someone else's needs, so you have that problem solution fit with the market. I think the most important advice that I would have is to just keep a very resilient mindset and not lose hope, because it's super tough. I'm a student myself, and I understand how tough it is to keep applying, to keep getting rejections, and still you don't have a choice, but you have to keep going on. And another thing is, when you start doing these things, you're gonna get even more rejections, because when you're networking, when you're like super into networking, you're gonna see that the rejection rate is super high. So something that really helps is having a very resilient mindset and understanding that this is part of the process. So the final thing that I wanted to get into when you're sort of doing your entire prep was resources. So things that have really helped me. One, look out for groups in your campus or on different social media sites like LinkedIn itself, or different professional career groups that will help you do the mock interviews. So that's one. Second is YouTube. Victor Chang is this ex-McKinsey consultant who has a free informational sort of career workshop on case interviews and how to do them. Go through it. That's the best free resource, I think, out there. Third is, it's called Case in Point. It's a book, and it's not super expensive, but it's like the Bible for case interviews. So you want to go through that as well. And also there's a book by Walt called Case Interviews. If you have the time, go through that as well. Now, I guess that's it about the consulting interviews. One thing I would really advise, and this is also a note to myself as I'm also a student applying for jobs, be super resilient. This process is super tough, and we're gonna be facing rejections almost every day, if not every hour. And it makes it super tough when you're international, when you have a visa and all these different legalities behind your employment, which make it super hard to get a job. But in the end, I feel if we do work hard, it's all gonna add up for us. I think that's it from my side. Feel free to reach out to me at LinkedIn. My name is Abhishek Aryaman. You'll find me. And I'll be more than happy to help anyone who has any questions. And even if you have some cool ideas for a project that you want to do or something you want to work on, I'd be more than interested. All right, guys. See ya. Best of luck.